Do the Dallas Cowboys have a problem at the place kicker position? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On
Cowboys.
Locked On Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. I am Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. He is Landon McCool. Check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon is at Cowboys Camp, reporting live from Oxnard. Landon, how you doing today, sir?
Good. You definitely threw me off with the idea that we're going to be talking kickers when there's a whole lot of stuff going on. But I'm here still.
That's not the most important thing of the day?
Probably not, but who knows? It was a great day of practice today. It was a much more lively practice. I mean, I think clearly yesterday was kind of a ramp up. It felt like things were a little bit more crisp today. It was a beautiful day. So, yeah, there's lots to talk about. Yeah,
let's just be clear. We're going to be talking about the Cowboys kicking situation. And right before we came on the show, Landon said, I hate talking about kickers. So we're going to make him talk about it anyways. The Cowboys had a rough day of kicking on Tuesday. Listen, yes, there was some wind. Jerry Jones was upset about the win and them kicking such long field goals. But both of the Cowboys kickers in camp right now are not performing particularly well. Landon, from your eyes at practice, how much of a problem has the kickers been? So have they been so far for the Cowboys?
Well, to be fair to myself, I haven't been paying a ton of attention to the kickers, but I will. I mean, I saw them kick, so especially the mojo moments, the ones that everyone's referring to. So I definitely can report to that. And I would say that 1 of 6 is not a good number that you want from your place kickers, just from my simple math in my head. Jerry was not blowing smoke, I guess, when he said that the wind was bad. Honestly, the thing I was actually complaining about to Marcus before we got on here was that I didn't understand why they, in a competitive situation, it was a pretty serious headwind and they were having them kick 50+ yard field goals. So, they weren't exactly setting them up for, gimmies. But obviously 1 of 6 from 50 yards, even for 50 yards is not great.
No, it's not. And the issue is this was a problem for the Cowboys last year before the season, in training camp, during the preseason, during the season. And we thought the Cowboys would maybe take the kicking situation a little bit more seriously this offseason after they kind of lost multiple games because of Greg Zuerlein last year. And they really didn't do that, right? They signed an undrafted free agent kicker. They didn't bring in a veteran. And it just feels like, Landon, we're going to get into the season. It's going to be the same issues again. I don't know if either of these kickers are giving us a lot of confidence that they'll be improved in that area.
I just don't know any kickers that are available that like I had to sign off the street. That's the other thing about this too, is that it's like the guys that are available kickers are going to be available kickers 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now. You can see if these guys can work through this, but there's no silver bullet at kicker. Like this, I think Cowboys fans.
There's not, but there's probably better options out there of guys that are at least somewhat experienced and you kind of know what they can do, right?
But experience doesn't help. Like, all these guys turn sour at some point. That's just what happens with kickers. Just that, they're great until they're not, and so I think that there's guys out there whose names that are available, but guess what? They're going to be ready to kick at a moment's notice 3 days before you can sign them on week 1 if you want that. I just, of all the positions, like this one to me epitomizes like the absolute necessary need to sign this guy during training camp. If you can develop a younger guy that you can, like if Liam or frankly, it's hard for me to pronounce both
Garby,
these
right?
guys.
Jonathan Garby.
Yeah, Jonathan Garby. Like if they both if either one of them develops, that's great. If they don't, you throw him on top of the trash pile and you go out to free agency and you sign another guy who you'll throw out in the trash pile 4 weeks from now when he misses a kick you don't like.
But you can see why this is so frustrating, though, for Cowboy fans. It's like this was a huge Achilles heel for them last year. And basically, the Cowboys kind of threw out their hands in the air like, yeah, well, we don't have any solutions. Let's just.
Oh, they did have a solution. They got rid of their kicker.
Yeah, getting rid of your kicker, not really going out and signing at least.
That's my point, though. That's my point, Marcus, is that the next guy will be the next guy, right? It's never going to stop until you magically sign Dan Bailey, and then he gives you an incredible run at kickers for 5 years or whatever. But until then, like, there are 4 to 5 reliable kickers in the NFL. Outside of that, it's a dice roll for me. I don't know. These guys have not been good. You need better than what these guys have been producing. I'm certainly not arguing that, but I also think that you can give these young guys an opportunity to work themselves out to get better at this, or you can sign the guy off the street and he might be marginally better until you need him. Who knows? It's such a roll of the dice. I have a hard time getting upset about it, frankly.
Dan Bailey, only 34 years old.
Yeah, I mean, have you seen him kick lately? Have you seen him kick lately?
I was just looking at his numbers; they're worse than I thought. So
yeah,
never mind.
Exactly. So thank you for proving my point. Let's move on to actual football.
Yes. Let's move on to the actual football news. But before we do that, I want to tell you guys that today's podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Life is full of twists and turns, and it's important to show up for yourself through it all. BetterHelp Online Therapy will assess your needs and can match you with your own licensed professional therapist in less than 48 hours. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's professional therapy done securely online, available to people worldwide. You can log into your account anytime and send a message to your therapist. You can schedule weekly video or phone sessions, so you don't even have to be on camera if you don't want to. And with therapy, it can take a few tries to get the right fit. BetterHelp makes it easy, and it's free to change therapists whenever you need. They've got a special offer going on right now. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That is 10% off your first month of online therapy at betterhelp.com/lockedon. All right, let's talk about some of the other things that happened at practice on Tuesday. I want to talk about the offensive and defensive line because padded practice is where you really learn about these guys. Yeah. Tyler Smith, what were your impressions from today?
Yeah, I actually got an opportunity to watch these guys a little bit more today than I did yesterday, and it's interesting what they're doing with Tyler Smith. I mean, he's rotating in with the ones, and he's playing with the twos. It's in fact, I think it's exclusively guard. And he is noticeably better than Connor McGovern. I mean, I don't think you have to be an expert in offensive line play at all. And I certainly don't claim to be, but I think it's easy to see the difference between the two: the athleticism, the strength, the movement skills. He's a bigger person who's moving better and is stronger, and he doesn't seem to be struggling with a lot of the technique stuff that we were concerned about. I mean, I need to kind of go back and watch some of the videos that I made, and I certainly will have more kind of details after doing that. But I mean, kind of after casually watching it live and then rewatching a couple of the snaps, on my phone, it seems like you're not seeing the egregious hand placement that you saw before. You're not seeing a problem with kind of getting his feet into position. I saw him turn a tackle all the way around on that huge Pollard run, the one that was the draw. Pollard Smith was playing guard on the play, and he's collapsed that left side. He's frankly what opened up that huge hole for Pollard. So I think he certainly looks the part. He certainly looks like he is one of the 5 best offensive linemen on this team, talent wise. And a couple other things we saw. I mean, I saw him, on a wide zone play, expertly get to the second level without any problem, and then target and engage with Leighton Vander Esch and then just completely seal him off on an outside run. So I think there's no surprises necessarily that he has been very successful in the run game. I don't think that should surprise too many folks. But I think
if he wasn't shining there, that's where we'd have an issue, right?
yeah, absolutely. I think that's, if he was having problems there, then I think that would be a little bit scary. I think what we need to get more information on is kind of the pass sets. I just didn't see a ton of it today. I mean, they were working a lot of run stuff today. So, but what I saw in the run game, he looks really, really good.
I want to talk about Neville Gallimore because he's really one of the players that the Cowboys need to have step up in the middle of their defense, right? What have you seen so far from him in practice?
Well, first thing that I thought that was really interesting is that he seems to be in that second group of defensive linemen, or either that or they are very heavily rotating the interior.
Which they probably are, right? I mean, they did last year. I mean, the only time where some guys got more snaps than others is when they had just so many injuries, but I don't know if we should worry too much about who's taking first string reps and second string with the defense.
If anything, it's I was actually presenting it in kind of an interesting opposite way because, and you're right, like, who's starting, whatever, but they do drills in order of depth chart, right? Like in order of starters, right? So like,
sure.
When they do individual defensive tackle drills, the starters will start, the second team will be the second group to go. And the first group to go with the defensive tackles is Tristan Hill and Odigizua. So I think that I found that,
which we should mention because Mike McCarthy actually pointed out Tristan Hill today. It's like somebody who brought a lot of energy to practice, which I think he said this was the first year Tristan Hill was with the team. Like back in 2020, Mike McCarthy's first year. I think he liked Tristan Hill a little bit. So it's interesting to see that he's continuing to play well in practice.
Yeah, he actually had a sack today, or would have had a sack today, and a couple other plays where he was able to knife in the backfield. He's popping a lot more. I think it's still kind of up and down with him, and you'd like for him to kind of get to the point where he's raising the floor a little bit more. But those moments but you're at least starting to see these flashes and the moments show up, and I think that's really encouraging. And going back to Gallimore, he had a sack as well during I don't know what they would call that 11-11, some sort of scheme specific scenario specific situation, and he had a sack on Dak. And on top of that, there was definitely several different points where he was in the middle of a scrum that wasn't able to kind of move the defensive line. So both of those guys have really stood out so far.
What about your guy Osa? I know I should at least ask about him because he's your favorite guy.
I didn't notice so much anything that he did. Maybe I'll go back through this the tape and get a little bit better, clear picture of him. But he didn't necessarily. I didn't notice him. Getting a sack or anything like that, or making huge plays. But obviously, that doesn't mean that he isn't fantastic.
A couple more defensive linemen I want to touch on. Sam Williams. I actually saw a clip today. Him beating Terrence Steele around the edge for what would have likely been a sack. It's certainly a pressure in a hurry. But what have you seen out there in Oxnard?
He moves really well. I mean, he just his speed is incredible. You obviously you see it when he's getting around a tackle or trying to pursue on the backside. But I mean, even then, like when the plays on the other side of the field, or let's say Pollard is going up the sideline on a sweep or something, even if he's the backside defender, like he'll take an angle to go cut it off, and he just runs really, really well for a guy his size. That's the other thing. Again, I think I mentioned it yesterday, but I was with a couple other folks at practice that I've kind of run into over the years. And that was the thing that they also noticed too, was that Sam Williams was a lot bigger, physically bigger than they kind of imagined based on numbers and that sort of thing. So he definitely looks the part.
The other guy that's every year an annual camp winner, Dorrance Armstrong. What did Dorrance Armstrong do today for you that caught your eye?
I thought that to kind of just put a button on it. For the defensive line was kicking the offensive line's butt for most of the day. It felt like up until the 2-minute situation where then the offense was able to kind of completely march down the field without any problems. But yeah, I saw Dorrance dip under Tyron at least once for a would-be sack, and 2 or 3 other times where he was able to get around guys to make plays. He's just, it seems to be a more consistent issue, a more consistent thing than what we've seen previously. I mean, obviously he has been training camp champion, 3-4 years running or whatever it is. But I think after last year, where we were able to see him kind of translate some of that to
moderate success, right?
The moderate success. Yeah. I think that, there's hope that he is ready to maybe even take another step.
All right. Anybody else on the trenches that we should talk about before we move on to talk about some receivers?
I will say that I saw Ridgeway getting a lot of personal attention from Quinn. They were definitely trying to work with him on some of the pass rush stuff.
Matt Farniak.
Farniak, I saw taking some snaps at center. He took some snaps at guard. He looks like he's holding his own there. He wasn't like blowing me away, but he certainly looks to be.
He's going to be that. Mix. I don't know, first offensive lineman off the bench, but he's going to be that swing interior guy that's probably active on game day because he can play 3 different spots.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see exactly how the dust settles on the whole Connor McGovern, Farniak, Biotish situation, right? Because at this point, it sure seems like Biotish has been given the opportunity to have the job at center and to lose it, right? If
and he probably should, considering that he started a bunch of games and he did improve last year.
Yeah, I thought that by the end of the year he was playing good football, and I think that is something that is probably going to give him the benefit of the doubt as a starter right now. But yeah, that doesn't mean that Farniak isn't having a good camp. It looks like he is. Connor McGovern, on the other hand, he's just been up and down. It feels like I see a nice snap here, and then he's getting backdoored by the defensive end, and suddenly he's not able to block him. So
it's kind of more of the same from Connor McGovern, right? You see flashes of it, but just not consistent at all, and gives you no faith that, like, hey, if this is a long-term starter at left guard or whatever, that he's going to be able to help.
Yeah, and I saw Ryan Neal take some passes out of the backfield, so he might lose his fullback job too. So
yeah, we know that's not happening. All right, I want to talk about the receivers because Jerry Jones is convinced they do not need to add a receiver here over the next few weeks. But before we do that, I want to tell you guys about Bet Online. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all of your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, or even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Landon, before we talk about the receivers, I do want to mention this quote from Jerry Jones after practice today. Michael Gelkin asked him about the urgency level to go out and get a receiver. Jerry Jones said, there's none at all. Let's get these guys the incentive, these young receivers, a big opportunity going forward. One of the players that's gotten a lot of opportunity and a lot of snaps here over the last couple of days, Simi Fehoko, who did not look particularly good in his first training camp with the Cowboys. How is he looking here in year 2?
All these young wide receivers look really great. I mean, Fehoko, Brown, you've seen Dennis Houston make plays.
Brandon Smith had a nice catch today.
Brandon Smith had 2 really nice catches today, down the field, in the middle of the field. So I was trying to figure out who number 80 was. I mean, that's the thing about it, is the odd thing about the wide receiver group right now is that there seems to be a hole in the middle, but the top end is obviously looks really good. CeeDee Lamb had another really good day today. And the middle bottom part of the roster of the wide receiver room looks really good too. So I think the problem is in that kind of wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 area, and exactly how that's going to suss out. I mean, I think I'm not shocked that Jerry is not saying that there's a level of urgency for the wide receiver situation, simply because I think anybody that they're coming to bring in to literally take snaps at during training camp, that's not going to be Will Fuller. It's not going to be T.Y. Hilton. That's just not what those guys are. So I think the question is, as presented to him, would in his mind be, are you guys interested in signing a camp body to kind of take over some of these snaps? I don't think that precludes you from getting an actual upgrade at wide receiver once we get closer to the regular season. But if we're talking about facilitating practice, even if you signed Will Fuller, I don't think that would happen. So I think that's kind of more what they're referring to there.
Maybe. I mean, I think they need maybe multiple veteran receivers to start in week 1 and week 2, because otherwise you're just asking a lot out of a 3rd-round pick from South Alabama. You're asking a lot from Noah Brown to come up and give you more snaps when he's really been a wide receiver 5 for most of his career. The guy that I want to talk about, though, Dennis Houston. So I went back and listened to our undrafted free agent show, and we actually talked about Dontario Drummond, Ty Freifogel. We didn't talk about Dennis Houston, and for good reason. I looked back at Dane Brugler's draft guide. Dennis Houston was wide receiver 85 for Dane Brugler in this year's draft. Wide receiver 85, and he might be one of their top 3, 4, 5 receivers on the roster right now. For people that have no idea who this player is, can you just tell us a little bit about the game that you've seen him play so far in practice?
I mean, I could try. Yeah, I mean, he's listed at 6'1".
I got his official numbers right here.
What's his numbers?
6'0", 198, 449 at Northwestern's pro day, because Western Illinois didn't even have a pro day, so he went to Northwestern's.
I have a hard time. I guess he could be 6'1". He seems really. It felt like I was confusing him at times with Turpin, and so I think that was because one's number 2 and one is number 3. He's very smooth. He there's very little wasted motion. I think a lot of the appeal with him is that he's just kind of where he needs to be, and he makes the play when the ball comes to him. It's not really super flashy. It doesn't seem like. He does have some, a little bit of speed, I guess, but he's not burning people or pulling away from folks. He's creating separation at times. He's coming down with contested catches, and he's doing so against, some of our ones on defensive backs. So, I think he's certainly earned that opportunity to play with the ones, to take snaps with the ones. It's weird to see him in there with everybody else, but he also hasn't looked like he doesn't belong yet. I'm sure that will come. That'll come. But I mean, as of right now, he doesn't look like it's too big for him. He doesn't look like he's outclassed. He looks like a guy who's fighting for a spot on the 53-man roster, which is incredibly impressive for an undrafted free agent rookie.
All right, so here's what I'm going to have you do. We haven't discussed this pre-show or anything, but you've been at both pad practices for the Cowboys. Let's rank the top 4 receivers on the team from what you've seen so far that are active. So don't know Michael Gallup, James Washington. CeeDee Lamb is obviously number 1, but just based on what you need to practices 2, 3, and 4, what do you?
Well, I think Tolbert is the next guy, simply because he hasn't made a ton of plays here, but you can tell when he does that, he's got a level of athleticism that maybe the other folks don't. I would have to put Noah Brown 2 or 3, I guess. I'm sorry. And then Simi Fehoko right behind him there.
Really? See, that's a little surprising to me. I thought that Turpin or Vasher or one of those guys would be ahead of Fehoko.
I think they're all very close. I mean, honestly, I think that they're all doing really, really well. They're all like, none of these guys are making huge mistakes. It was noticeable. Tolbert had, I guess, a drop, and that was noticeable, right, when it happened. Like, because you're just not seeing a lot of it. You're seeing these guys come down with footballs. You're seeing them make plays. I mean, there's just been a high level of concentration and solid play by these guys. I mean, I'll point to that tipped pass touchdown that Fajoku had yesterday, right? Like, yeah, being in the right place at the right time, but that was an incredibly difficult catch that he was able to seal. Like, those are the kind of things that he couldn't do simple stuff last year. And now he's doing like the complicated things. Like, he's making adjustments to the ball midair. He's coming back to the ball to take advantage of his height. So, and you're seeing Noah Brown do it too. And obviously that's Vasher's game as well. I think all these guys are very close. Like, it's hard.
So what would you say to somebody who maybe is a little bit more pessimistic about this wide receiver core? Maybe somebody like me a little bit. That's just like, okay, it's training camp. We've seen this happen a million times. Guys will have 1 or 2 good days, but once we get to the season, you can't count on them. Do you have different thoughts?
No, not necessarily. But I also think you have to let that play out. I think that there you have to allow for the opportunity that everyone was wrong about these guys, and that they. I mean, look, they haven't shown you that they can't do it yet. I think that's kind of the step that we take when we get to regular season conversations about 53-man rosters, right? And who's going to make the team is. The hardest part of this is not where we are right now. The hardest part is, 4 days before we break camp, are they still doing it? Is it still
that's where I'm at until we get to like 2 more weeks of, let's say it's Dennis Houston that's taking more snaps with the ones and continues to make plays. I think that's when I'll be excited. It's just hard after 2 days, right?
No, absolutely. I think the thing that's different, and maybe maybe I've formulated a little bit better, is that normally there's 2 or 3 of these guys. This year, there's like 4 or 5 of these guys that are all kind of on track to show you something. And so, and they all have kind of their own unique, intriguing sort of situation. Vasher is an oversized wide receiver, guys that you don't see very well. Noah Brown is a 5th-year developmental wide receiver who may finally have developed. Simi Fajoku is a guy that looks like a person who's kind of finally learned how to use his body correctly. And all of them are playing very and Houston is obviously an undrafted free agent rookie, which makes it, completely off everybody's radar. All of these guys have made it interesting at the very least again, I'm not saying that any of these guys are even one solution to the wide receiver depth chart, but we have to figure out exactly what you have in these guys, because what happens if like 2 of them are just really good and it just worked out that way? That's something that is, at least worth investigating at this point.
Last thing I want to ask you about. So CeeDee Lamb has been dominating practice. You were fortunate enough to be at practice when Dez was doing Dez things. What was that 2012, 2013, I think, in that stretch? How would you kind of compare and contrast CeeDee Lamb's practices versus Dez's practices back then?
Honestly, I think it's a tough comparison because of the types of practicing that they're done. This was actually an interesting conversation I was having with Rabble about Rabble Rouser, who writes for Blog and the Boys, we were having a conversation about how the differences between the practices, and we've been through 2 padded practices so far, and we've had no one-on-ones, none. We've had 0. Individual competitive or even 2-on-2s competitive. And I'm pretty sure we've done 0 live hitting drills. Like, it's all been touch or, bumps, was what they call them. Those can get physical. Trust me. Like, people are going to the ground every once in a while. That's something that they are trying to avoid, but it's not been full on. So the reason I'm bringing that up is that one thing that Dez was really, really good at, not surprisingly, were those one-on-one competitive drills, right? Where he was just dominate guys. I think you see CeeDee Lamb dominant. Like there's definitely most points of the game where practice where he's able to get open and make the catch at will. Like there was a whole section of practice where him and Dak basically marched down the field by themselves.
Yeah.
But it's not quite the same show-stopping, athletic marvel that you saw with Dez when he was going one-on-one versus, poor defensive backs that were assigned to him at the time.
Okay, that makes total sense. I expect CeeDee Lamb to have a huge year. I think you do as well. It's just can they find a wide receiver 2 and a wide receiver 3 over the next, few weeks before week 1? We'll see, Landon. We'll see. So Cowboys have a practice again on Wednesday, correct?
Yes, and I did want to bring out one more thing too.
Go ahead.
There's an overall thing that I forgot to mention. I saw a lot more motion today than I had seen in a long time. I saw a lot more tight split stuff, a lot more condensed formations. So those are things to kind of keep in mind. They clearly are going to see you're going to see a lot of Lamb in that kind of nasty split, that really short split where he's on the line of scrimmage right off of the tackle or tight end. They had a lot of that.
Call that the Cooper Kupp slot, right?
Yeah, exactly. A lot of him doing kind of over routes from that spot. So they've worked on that in full speed and at half speed every single day so far these last 2 days, I guess.
And that's how you can make the offense a little bit more efficient, by helping CeeDee Lamb avoid cross coverage, getting him in space where he can make plays after the catch. Huge year for CeeDee Lamb incoming, as long as he can stay healthy. That is it for today's show. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, make sure that you're following the Locked On Cowboys podcast, as Landon is going to be out at practice again tomorrow. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen today. Now make your second listen to the Locked On NFL podcast. Our national NFL experts and insiders keep fans dialed in with the biggest stories and the latest news from around the league, because an offseason doesn't equal a break in the action. It's not like a whole bunch of NFL news was dropped on us on Tuesday or anything.
Oh, jeez. Good Lord.
Hey, at least we're not Locked On Dolphins right now. Shout out to
man.
those guys.
Feel for those guys.
Yeah. Follow show again at Locked On Cowboys. You can follow Landon at McCool BCB. I am at Marcus _Mosher. See you next time.